is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 70 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And today our guest is Chris-Tia Donaldson, who's the CEO of Thank God It's Natural, a manufacturer of natural hair and skincare products. And on this episode, Chris-Tia and I dive into how to become a master problem solver and grow your brand. And she talks about, how she started the company, the value that her legal training and law degree gave her and how it helped her grow her business, how she managed having a full-time law career and expand the brand to major retailers such as Target, Walgreens, Sally's, Beauty Supply, and more. And she talks about what happened when she was diagnosed with breast cancer and how she worked through that moment in her life and was still able to keep her business afloat. So there's so many great stories, so many great tips that she shares in today's episode. If you want to get show notes and you want to learn a little bit more about Chris-Tia, I invite you to go to dreamsanddrive.com and click on episode 70 and make sure as you're listening that you're engaging with us on social. So use the hashtag Dreams and Drive. Follow us at Dreams and Drive on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Share this with a friend. Let's really engage with the episode as it's really what helps other people learn about the great stories that we're sharing every week. Also, make sure that you guys enter our giveaway of the week. We partnered up with TGIN to offer one lucky dream driver the entire Moist collection. So you'll get the shampoo, conditioner, honey hair mask, and the buttercream moisturizer. To enter, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/win. That's dreamsanddrive.com/win. Thank you so much to Chris-Tia and the entire TGIN family for helping to make this giveaway possible. All right, so I hope that you guys enjoy this one, and we'll chat again in the outro. For dream drivers listening in, this is not Chris-Tia and I's first time on the rodeo. We connected, I want to say it had to be back in 2014. You had read an article that I wrote on Madame Noir on another hair company. You reached out to me on LinkedIn and we connected from then, and we've been able to build a good relationship, and I love TGIN products. You guys will hear all about Chris-Tia's company, but I don't want to give away too much, Chris-Tia, and I can talk a lot, so... But let's get started with the first question. I love to ask all our guests this question. What inspired you as a child? If I were to say who was Chris-Tia, the 7-year-old, the 8-year-old, what would you say?
I would say someone who I was inspired by the love of reading as well as like the love of learning. And so I went to a gifted school as a child, and we didn't have grades. So it wasn't like about getting an A+ or a 4.0, power and being knowledgeable and smart. And I recognized that as a very early age. And I just continued to seek out knowledge, throughout my entire childhood, as well as even now, constantly being on a quest for learning.
Do you remember what your childhood dream job was?
I probably wanted to be like a doctor or a lawyer because it sounded cool, if you will. I just knew that I wanted to go to college when I grew up and that I wanted to do great things. Even in my Harvard interview, they asked me when I was a senior in high school, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I don't know what I want to be, but I just want to be really good at it. I was like, not only to be good at it, I want to be great at it. So, yeah.
So you mentioned Harvard, so you went to Harvard. What did you study at Harvard?
I studied economics undergrad, and then I went to Harvard for law school.
So that lawyer that you dreamt of maybe becoming,
became. Yeah.
What was that?
No one told me what it was really going to be like. So yeah.
What were your thoughts before going to law school? Like, what did you envision it being like, and then what was the reality?
Well, I think it kind of matched what I thought it was going to be like. I knew it was going to be a lot of hard work, a lot of studying, tests, what have you. And so it kind of lived up to my expectations in that regard. But as I get older and understand the professional world a lot more, I realize that being excellent in the law sometimes has nothing to do with how smart you are. Sometimes it's largely driven by who do you know, and if your dad was a lawyer, and if your grandfather was a lawyer, and all of those things do come into play sometimes in the profession, not just being a lawyer, but in general in life.
So, once you graduated from Harvard Law, did you go straight into practicing law, or did you do something in between?
So after graduating from law school, I went straight into practicing law, and I worked at a law firm for about a year and a half. That's the one where Barack and Michelle met. And that's kind of how I got my start, because Weenie Afro, back when products really didn't exist for this hair type, and I wore a wig to hide the fact that my hair was kinky. And based on that experience of, almost getting fired off my first job, I said, after this, I'm going to totally do me. I'm going to totally be natural, be my authentic self, and everything else, I've never looked back.
So wait, you almost got fired because of your hair?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of like where you can't show up to the workplace being who you authentically are. You're constantly uncomfortable, especially you're working 80-hour weeks. You're wearing a suit to work every day. And then on top of it, you're walking on eggshells, being something that you're not. It definitely plays a part in how you perform. So it may not be like, oh, it caused me to make a typo in my memo, but you can't really get to the top in an environment where you don't feel comfortable on a day-to-day basis.
So as you said, this was the beginning of you realizing that, I got to find my own pathway, or I got to find my own place in this world, right?
Right. Exactly.
So there's so many different pathways that we could go down, different roads that we can go down right now. But let's talk about your hair, because you are the founder of Thank God It's Natural, which is a natural hair products line that is sold in Target. You're in what other stores are you guys in now?
So we're in Target, we're in CVS, Walgreens, Sally, and Whole Foods.
Okay, so we want to know how did TGIN, as I call it, because it's easier to say that than Thank God It's Natural. How did Thank God It's Natural get started? Let's go back to those early days.
So basically, like I said, I was in this law firm, and as a result of that experience, I was like, I should be able to wear my hair however I want to wear it. So based on that experience of not being able to find products in the market that gave me the style I was looking for, I said, let me invent them. And so after developing the products, or really writing a book about hair care that went on to be a bestseller called Thank God I'm Natural, I started working on the products, developed them, and then everything else from there was a total get the trunk of my car, everywhere, talking to anybody and everybody who would listen about Thank God It's Natural. And that's kind of where we are today. It was that grind.
Mm-hmm.
It's a grind.
What year did you first launch?
Well, we launched the book in 2009 and the hair care products in 2013.
Okay. So what year were you, was the hustle starting? Like when you were selling it out of your car, out your trunk? What year is that?
Well, the real hustle started when I started writing the book. So that was back in 2006.
Okay.
And I was doing that for about a good 2.5 years. Then the book came out, and literally I was selling books out of my car. I've been selling stuff out of my car since 2009. And so it's been literally a grind of being on my feet every weekend, going to festivals, going to trade shows, going to hair shows. And just like I said, speaking to women about what they love or hate about their hair and how we can be of assistance.
What were some of the top things that you learned during that research time? Like what was it that people were telling you that they loved and hated about their hair?
Well, the thing that is at the time that I was kind of promoting the book, but right before launching the products, I realized that there were products on the market that focus more on curl definition and shiny, elongated curls, telling women with kinky hair that they could achieve that. But that wasn't the issue. The issue was dryness. And so we came out, when we launched our products, we came out with products called the Moist Collection. And we were probably the first brand in the space to really push the notion of softer, moisturized, more manageable hair, as opposed to turning your kinky hair like what I have into something that's silky and wavy. And I think that authenticity, that honesty, that realistic kind of promise is what won our fans over.
And I can attest to that. And this is not an ad. Chris-Tia is not paying me, but I I to this day, since I first tried your products back in 2014, that's the only I shouldn't say only. 90% of the time, that is the shampoo and conditioner and honey hair mask that I use on my hair. And it works. Like, it really does make your hair feel moisturized, because I have kinkier textured hair. And it's like, that's the number one problem for me. So I will attest to it, ladies or guys listening in. The product speaks for itself. But Chris-Tia, so you studied law. You did not study business, or in that sense, you didn't study manufacturing beauty products. What was that whole process like in those days of just figuring out how to actually successfully launch a hair products company?
Well, it's funny because now that I look back on it, I was scared to launch it because I was like, I'm no chemist. I have no background in manufacturing. I don't know anything about shampoo other than the shampoos that I buy and use on my hair. But I realized that my legal training, combined with just kind of God's laying this path out before me, my legal training taught me not only how to be a good lawyer, but how to be a great problem solver. And so every day I'm faced with problems and challenges, whether it's marketing or manufacturing or caps running out, whether it's coming up with a new deep conditioner or figuring out how to say something better, is literally just figuring out how to solve problems. And so when I boil it down to that, I got a little bit more comfortable starting the company and even running it to this day.
Do you remember the first big problem that you had to solve?
Well, the first big problem was finding someone to help us make our stuff. Like, we started in the kitchen, of course, like everyone does. And then you have to find someone when you're getting bigger where you're like, I need 25,000 of this. That's the first problem. And so, yeah, I had to figure it out.
So how did you figure it out? Did you go to the telephone book, research beauty manufacturers?
Relationships, just relationships. People crossed my path. I was asking. I did a lot of networking and realized that it was relationships that got me what I needed.
Okay. So if you had to say, let's say someone's a newbie entrepreneur and they don't really know how to address problems when it comes their way, what do you think would be the formula that you use for addressing and assessing problems in businesses or even challenges in your business?
I think you just have to kind of pause and reflect versus being reactive, and just kind of take a moment to think, what is the problem? What are my options? And do kind of just a basic cost benefit analysis, and know that most problems, even in my business, 98% of the things that are considered challenges, even if you get it wrong, it's not irreversible, meaning like very few mistakes. That's what I tell my team. You can make a mistake, but it's not something that we can't fix. So don't be scared to make decisions. Don't be scared to solve what you perceive to be problems, because like I said, most things are fixable.
So something else that's important in the early days is just building brand awareness and even building your customer base. What were some of the things that you had to do in those early days to really make sure that people knew about Thank God It's Natural?
Well, of course, a lot of social media, a lot of marketing, and a lot of face-to-face on-the-ground interaction with customers, whether it's at events, in-store demos, festivals, trade shows, you name it. We needed to be there.
Was there one channel that you used that really helped skyrocket, or just really helped build the brand base?
I would say Facebook was really helpful, as well as YouTube. Like, our brand came out at the very beginning. Facebook, I think, got its start as like 10 years old, so around 2004, I think Facebook started.
Mm-hmm.
But it really didn't take off until like 2008, 2009, when it went, kind of where the general public could use it as opposed to a small group of schools. And so it was around that same time that we launched this company. And as a result of that, we were able to ride that wave, because it was anything you posted, people saw. It wasn't this pay-to-play model that it is today. So that really worked in our favor.
So during this time, those early days, would you have identified, or would you have called Thank God It's Natural your dream and your purpose? Did you know that this was what you think you should be doing with the rest of your life? And not saying that it will be, but like, how did you identify, or how did you, what was the relationship between you and the business at this point?
Well, I think it was basically the notion of it kind of, if you ever saw the movie of Beloved, where a woman, did you ever see that movie,
I
Beloved?
read the book. I saw, is this the one with by Toni Morrison? The
Yeah, where the
with
woman was born a
Oprah and
slave.
Holly? Or is it Oprah or
Yeah.
just Holly? I forgot. I think it's
I'm
Holly.
not. I think it's Oprah. I don't remember. I can't remember. But the point is, the woman was born a slave, and rather than have her baby be born into slavery, she killed it. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that's a very graphic representation. But after getting fired from that first law firm job, I was like, I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure my kids have options. And even though I went to the best schools in the world, I just felt like my talent was wasted. It was questioned, what have you. And I said, I want my kids to have different. And so I busted my behind, make a way for them to be entrepreneurs. And so, yeah, that was kind of where my mind was when I started the company.
So if you had to, was there any time during those early days where you felt like walking away? And if so, what did you do?
I never felt like walking away. It would
That's
be
great.
hard. It would be so hard. And I just stick it out.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good because you also have a strong team. Well, actually, I should mention to people listening in who don't know, Chris-Tia also has a full-time job. So, how did you manage still having your job as a corporate lawyer and running a business? And remember, TGIN is not a side hustle; it's its own business. You know what I mean? It's like a
So
fully fledged,
that's a
scaled
great
business.
question. So basically, I managed by all these years by having a great team who could take care of my appointments, make sure my calendar was on tight, was tight, as well as helping with logistics and things of that nature. Have somebody helping with shipping, having people helping with social media, and so the business feeds them, and my company, meaning Oracle, fed me. And only recently, meaning as of 2 weeks ago or whatever, the day after Martin Luther King Day, I announced that I was leaving Oracle after 10 years. And I'm glad I waited because Oracle taught me everything I needed to know about business. And I could have left sooner, but I just don't. I'm very much an intuitive person.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like now is the right time. It's the right time.
What? Why do you think now is the right time?
Well, I feel like the business is at a place where, like, I was like, okay, when I get into Target, I'm quitting. Well, the point is, I got into Target and I was able to do, Target and TGIN at the same time. And I got breast cancer at the same time as that, but I still stayed at Oracle. But then when we got into CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, and Whole Foods, I was like, there are too many balls in the air. I have to be able to focus on these six balls, if you will, plus other moving aspects of the company, as well as growing it, hiring more people. And so it kind of became, it's kind of like some people, my business coach says, you're like a single mom. So literally, like, I'm a single mom. And it's like, initially I was like, hey, I don't really, I have a little bit of help, but then it was like, I really have my kids going to school. I need, you know what I'm saying? I can't be working two jobs. I have to focus on my baby. And so that's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do.
So you mentioned a lot in what you just said. So I want to make sure that we
Sorry.
people probably like, oh no, what? So I'm gonna go back a little bit. So you said that Oracle helped you learn the lessons of business. What do you think were some of those core business lessons that you learned in by having that corporate background that really translated to TGIN?
They want their money. And so I have learned that lesson that when it comes to getting paid, when it comes to payment terms in a contract, you need to be all over it. When it comes to closing deals, you need to be all over it. I always tell people being at Oracle is like being in a football game with 10 seconds on the clock, and they're like, we need to score 2 touchdowns. And you're like, what? And they're like, make it happen, because they're about their money. So that's number one. It also taught me to be a really good listener. A part of my job is negotiating as well as defending the company's position on a lot of issues. And even though I've heard customers tell me things 2,000 times, I still always listen like it's the first time, because you never know what people are going to tell you. And then I guess the third thing is just relationships.
I have sat in the, I don't know what you want to call it, sat kind of backstage or been the backup dancers to my sales teams. But the thing I've learned the most is that relationships are the key drivers of business. Your money is tied to who you know and how you treat people. And so I've always remembered that. That's a big deal in terms of how I choose to run my business and how I conduct myself personally as well.
Wow, so you learned the money, being a good listener, and the relationships are
Yes.
good to business. So a lot of people, and I think this is something, I think especially within the millennial generation, a lot of us have these ideas, right? Like, let's say even with this podcast, Dreams and Drive, I've been doing it for about a year. I still have my full-time job, as we were discussing before we started the podcast. And it's like, when do you take the leap? Because there's some people who say, if you have an idea, just quit whatever you're doing and focus full time. What would you tell that person?
I mean, everybody has their own way of doing things. I don't like to struggle. I never
Me
really
either.
had to struggle. So let me tell you, I was like, I'd rather work my ass off and be dead tired than be struggling trying to pay my bills. And so that's why I basically had a job in a company. But the one regret I do have, but this is God's way of using me to tell other women, my boss was kind enough to tell me that if you ever want to come back and work for us on a contract basis, like at the end of quarter, you can do that. I mean, like if you want to make extra money. Well, not to say I don't need it at this point, but at this point that I wouldn't be quitting if I needed the extra money. But the point is, don't ever feel like when you're coming out the gate that you have to quit and go all in 100%. You can juggle both, or you can pull back and go to your boss and say, hey, I really want to try something different. Do you think I can become a contractor or do a part-time arrangement or do like 30 hours a week? People are open to things. And I really wish that that was something that I had presented to my boss versus him having presented it to me. Because all I can say is, I would have left a long time ago if that option was on the table. But the point is that option wasn't supposed to be my option. It was my job to tell people via podcast or what have you, if you're thinking of pursuing your dreams, maybe, doing it on a part-time basis at your other job. Don't quit your job. Can we work out something here?
You know what that reminds me? In episode 50, we spoke with a business lawyer, and he also is a negotiation consultant, and we did an episode on how to become a better negotiator, and he talked about you never know if you don't ask, you'll never know, right? And sometimes there's so much more flexibility and options that we're just so afraid to ask. Yeah. So it's so interesting to hear you talk about that. But one thing that I think, and I've talked to you in person outside of this podcast, so I definitely know your personality. You're very strong-willed, you're very confident, you're somebody who is driven, but a lot of entrepreneurs don't necessarily have that same personality, right? Do you think that in order to be able to juggle both, if you are still at your full-time job and you have this passion of yours that you're pursuing, that you really have to hone in on certain skills? Because I feel like, or do you think it's just really a mindset?
Well, I mean, people do tell me I have a very strong personality. I'm very confident. But recently I joined a leadership program, being around other leaders who don't have the same personality as me, but still manage to get it done. So, for instance, one of the girls that's in my program, she's the director of operations for United, which is like she's 2 steps under the CEO at United. But she
Airlines?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, but she has a softer personality than me. You know what I'm saying? She's a little bit sweeter, a little bit nicer, a little bit more understanding, a better people person. But she manages to get things done. So it's like, you just have to find your own way, if you will. There's more than one way to rise, to rise in your chosen profession or passion, if you will.
Now, that's so interesting, and I feel like it's encouraging too, right? Because I think some people, I've talked to a lot of people, and there's some people come to me and say, oh, but Raina, I'm not as outgoing as you. I don't know how to network. And I'm like, that should never be your reason why you don't try, right? Because there are different ways. Everyone networks differently. So it's good to hear you talk about how you don't have to have this, stereotypical personality or the personality that people people think or what succeeds in order to succeed. So thank you for mentioning that. But one thing you mentioned when we were talking before, and I want to make sure that I honor this and I don't just skip it over, is you, during this whole process, and I read, I'm your friend on not on Facebook, on Instagram, I read other articles, is during this whole journey of yours, Chris-Tia, you found out you had breast cancer. How did that affect your business? And, maybe you can walk us through that whole part of your journey.
Okay, so I found out, like I said, when we were launching in Sally's. So we were launching in Sally's, and I found out in December. And the crazy woman in me, the day I found out, I just had my best friend call Oracle and tell them I wasn't coming back to work and that I would deal with them when I could, what happened. And so then, dealing with doctors, what have you, but still, for whatever reason, again, another challenge, another problem I have to figure out. I'm like, I have to get the best healthcare. I have to find the best surgeon. I have to understand what this is. So again, running a company probably on some level with prayer plus my experience being a CEO saved my life, because when I went to the first hospital, it was garbage. And some people will take garbage healthcare, but I was like, there has got to be someone out here who can do what I need them to do. And I found them the same way I found the company to help make my fresh shampoos. It's the same process. But while I was sick, I didn't really tell anyone on Instagram. I didn't post nothing. I just kind of kept the company going. My team kept it going while I was going through surgery, going through chemotherapy. And then I finally kind of made mention of it at the very, very end, because I didn't want people to feel sorry for me, but I did want to be a beacon of hope for young women, particularly young women or anyone who, but particularly a reminder to young women who our audience is, largely comprised of women 25 to 44, that breast cancer isn't some disease for old white women, which is what I thought it was. I didn't think I knew Black people got it, but I didn't think it was that common. I thought it was like, if it ran in your family or what have you. So for me to get this at 36, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to let other people know as a kind of public health announcement. But like I said, while I was sick, I had a great team running the day-to-day of the company. And when I could check email, I did. And if something was urgent, they had to figure it out. They had to problem solve.
How were you able to stay positive, or how were you able to stay so focused during this time? Because I feel like, I've never had to deal with that type of health issue. And I don't have a company of your size that I have to run. But my personality as it is right now, I feel like I would have shrunk into myself and I would have felt hopeless. But what was that thing that was really keeping you going during that time?
From a business or
maybe you can do both, from a business and personal.
I think from a personal perspective, what kept me going was my dad and my uncle. My dad was praying for me all the time, and he would fly in to take care of me from Florida. But my uncle basically lived with me on and off. And they would lie to me, I think, and tell me from time to time, oh my gosh, you sound so good today, or oh my gosh, you look good today, or whatever. But they would really just tell me, you sound good, even when I didn't believe I sounded good. And I think hearing that from them kept me going on a personal level. On a professional level, what kept me going, or really where I turned a corner, was I had this meeting with Target on March 22nd, 2016. And when I had to schedule my first chemotherapy appointment, they were basically like, when can you do it? I was like, I have this meeting with Target on March 22nd. And I said, I have to look my best for it. So we picked a date, that would allow me to go up to Target and still look good. Meaning I would have eyebrows and eyelashes. So I go up there. I'm nervous because I'm just like, my confidence is shook. I'm like weak. I've been on chemotherapy and my confidence was so shook. I was so nervous. But I went in that meeting and I nailed it. And when I was done giving my presentation, they said, now that's how you give a presentation.
Wow.
Meaning that's what the buyer said. And in that moment, when I left that meeting and flew from Minneapolis back to Chicago, I said, if I can do that, then I can do anything after that. That was the hardest thing
I was going to have to do. And I was like, if I can do that, go into Target, do this meeting, do these negotiations and kill it, then everything else after that is going to be cake. And so that was what kept me going, was that one moment where I was like, I found my old self again and realized I am still who I am. This cancer thing is just literally, this is just a test. That was my whole Instagram thing, is this is only a test. And that moment for me, when they said, now that's how you give a presentation after, flying up there, getting back home, I was like, I got this. I got this.
Did they know? You didn't tell anyone on the Target team?
They didn't know anything, which is, in hindsight, they probably like, this is the craziest thing that this girl came in here and nailed this presentation. And she literally is in chemotherapy. She had breast cancer. Like, yeah, but they would have never known. God is good.
He is. And was there any point during this, this part of your life where you doubted? Because, sometimes that doubt can creep up on us. And when there was that moment of doubt, how did you repel it? Or how did you not allow it to take over?
So, yeah, that moment of doubt was probably like before the whole Target thing, where I felt what was happening to me was so unfair. I'm like, I am such a good person. I go to church. I give money. I started a company that's helping people. And this is my punishment. I'm 36. I was just at a point of, I wanted to start a family. Like, I had, worked so hard and finally reached a certain level of financial comfort where I was like, this is a possibility for me. And then I find out I had cancer. And that's why I was like, oh my God, I totally doubted after that. I was like, this is some BS.
Wow. But look, as you said, God is good, and look how much you have been able to accomplish. And now are you in remission now, or how does that, I don't know. I'm sorry if I don't know the terms.
No. I am. So basically, after I had my lumpectomy in January of last year, they determined that I was cancer free. I didn't know I was cancer free, but basically I was cancer free last January. I didn't think I was cancer free till like May. Someone told me, yeah, you're cancer free. I was like, what? So basically I'm in remission. They caught it very early. The 5-year survival rate for catching things at my stage is like 90 something %, like 95%. Okay. So I'll probably be here 5 years from now, if the good Lord is willing. And yeah, I just feel really good, but I've had to make some adjustments in my life, and I'm okay with that.
What kind of adjustments did you have to make?
Well, I had to figure out how to slow down to speed up, if you will, meaning like I used to work all the time. And I still work a lot, but I had to put up some boundaries and respect them. I have to realize that I don't need to check my cell phone the first thing when I wake up in the morning. I realized that some of my relationships that were strained due to petty stuff, that stuff can sometimes build up in you and manifest in your system. So I had to learn to let things go. I had to stop drinking so much, because that's also a contributor of breast cancer and increased risk of breast cancer is alcohol. So it's like a number of adjustments. I wish I could go to yoga more. I would love to, but it's like my schedule is nuts some days. So yeah.
And now that you'll be working full time or in TGIN, you can only imagine how that's going to shift, right?
Right. Exactly.
Because one thing I say is sometimes when you're really busy, it's easy to get, or like, when you have your full-time job, you have those responsibilities, and you have your TGIN responsibilities, your time is so precious, right? You have to really organize your time. So now that you're going to be working on TGIN full time, how do you see your role in the company evolving or changing, or how do you see yourself really moving the company forward?
Well, the goal is to work on the company versus in the company. And in the company is the day-to-day. On the company is being more strategic. And so again, my role, I see it as being more strategic, and
building up my team and investing in them and training them and giving them the resources they need to be great in their role. And so that's kind of my job, is setting the strategic vision and building an amazing team.
So I want to get a little bit into just like, this could be a whole podcast within itself, just the business of having, being within the multicultural beauty segment. I feel like there's so many things that we don't know until we know, right? And in our first interview, and you guys, I'll link to this in the show notes of this episode, but Chris-Tia and I had a very great conversation with Madame Noir where you really talked about just what went into building the company. And one of the main things that you mentioned that really helped your growth was getting into those stores. So really opening up your distribution channels. Why was that an important move for your business, and how did it really change the game for you guys?
For Target or for the other stores?
Well, I don't know. Is there a difference between Target specifically, or would it, were all the channels equally as important to your growth?
Well, the smaller stores are critical, because if you can't get it right on the small scale, you're really going to get it wrong when you get to Target. And there are not a lot of opportunities to kind of, like I said, a lot of things are fixable. You don't want to mess up when you get to the big leagues. And so you got to really tighten up your game in smaller stores with your shipping just to customers and your online orders. And so that's really important. But what that did for us, like I said, it got us ready for the big leagues. And once we got into Target, CVS, Walgreens, and Rite Aid, it just really opened up the door for me as a businesswoman to just do other things and have conversations with different types of people outside of the hair care industry, and thinking about what my impact will be beyond TGIN. I realized that I'm extremely blessed, that I've accomplished a lot, but with that, particularly with this whole Trump presidency and everything that is happening with the judicial nomination process, the Muslim ban, what have you, how do we use our voice to address that? And we have a platform for that. So it may not be like, posting on Thank God I'm Natural, but as a woman and someone in the business community, these are the things or challenges that I'm not going to say I'm responsible for, but I would be remiss not to feel like I need to contribute to making the world a better place in that regard.
I'm so happy that you brought that up, because I feel like that's something that a lot of us, especially people who are within the lifestyle and creative segments, is we're trying to figure out how do you find purpose, and how do you make sure you're making an impact without, I don't want to say without feeling like you're riding the wave, or how do you stay genuine in that? Do you have any tips for that? Because I feel like right now, across my timeline, from brands will make statements that you don't necessarily think are genuine, right? You're sometimes wondering, just trying to get in there on the hashtag, or do you really mean what you say? So what advice would you have for that entrepreneur who's really trying to find out how to get into the conversation without exploiting the conversation, if that makes sense?
And it's a very careful dance, because you would be surprised. I mean, like I said, with the Muslim ban, if that's what you want to call it, you hear about all these people protesting and all these people kind of, like you said, riding the hashtag. But then when you look at the general American public, the majority of people in America supported the Muslim ban, according to like research polls. So it's like, when you're in the business of selling shampoo, you're in the business of selling shampoo. But you have to take a step back and figure out, what is the mission of your company, and are you being true to your mission? So some issues some things I comment on as an individual, and some things I feel that as a Black-owned company that services Black women, we have to address it. So that may be something like Trayvon Martin, Nelson Mandela, his passing, things like that, where it's like, okay, it's not that we can't get it wrong, but it's like we feel like the general consensus of our audience feels like this is acceptable. Hillary Clinton potentially being the first president, based on 96% of Black women voting for her, I feel that's pretty safe to say that, like, okay, we can go here. But there are some certain things where my views may not necessarily be the views of everyone that
is on who of all of our customers. And so I have to be careful with that.
And you also spoke about really understanding who your target customer is. And we didn't really touch on that, but I feel like you guys know who you're speaking to, right? And with any entrepreneur, especially if you're going to be in the hair care beauty space, you have to know your customer, right?
Exactly. You totally have to know your customer. And the way you learn your customers, like I said, it goes back to what I learned at Oracle, which is those listening skills, engaging and interacting, but also just being open to what it is they have to say.
I agree 100%. And one thing that you mentioned as we wind down is I think I love your views, and I know that you love seeing women of color succeed. And one of the things that we talked about in our conversation way back in 2014 is how we need more representation within the business, right? And one thing you mentioned was, I think you were saying you had a hard time struggling. You had a hard time embracing that it's okay to want to be the best. And you talked about, I think one of your earliest inspirations was Pamela Thomas. How do you say her last name?
Graham.
Yeah. And just seeing her as an inspiration and how we need more people to look up to and how it's okay to have those big goals. And I think sometimes as women and even as women of color, sometimes we're afraid to stand up on the pedestal and say, hey, I want to be this and I can be it.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that woman? I know everyone's listening. I know our Dream Driver audience is comprised of different people, but for the woman especially listening in, what would you say to that woman who needs to hear this today?
Claim it. Because the point is, it's like, I don't know where my confidence came from. They blessed me with too much of it. Because the funny thing is, sometimes it's like I'll be talking to my girlfriends and they just won't own it. So like one of my girlfriends yesterday, she's a really good event planner. So I was helping her negotiate a contract, and she's basically like thinking if she asked this company for an additional $3,000, they're going to walk away. Well, I'm like, this company does billions of dollars. $3,000 is nothing to them. Own it. You deserve it because you are the caliber of event planner that they want to deal with. And it's like, you have to have that belief in yourself, because if you don't believe your own hype, no one else will. If you're coming to the table saying you worth $25,000, you worth $25,000. You come to the table saying you worth $100,000, you worth $100,000. And this goes to relationships too. Ladies, I'm talking to you. I have found as I've gotten older that I'm like, wait, she's not the type of girl I want to be messing around with, like, in a like, I don't want to ruin this. She seems like a good one. When you're younger and you're dating, you're kind of like, well, making excuse. Well, yeah, when you make excuses for people that you're dating, you're going to get that type of behavior because you're saying or projecting like, this is what I'm willing to take. You have to let people know how to treat you. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Confidence or no confidence, you tell people and you show them how you should be treated.
And is that something that you can practice, or it's something that you just have to know how to do?
No, I think you can practice it. I think it's little moments. It's stepping out and, again, taking my advice that most things are fixable. You can't really get it wrong.
So I have a question from one of our listeners. Her name is Imani Oliver, and she wants to know, when do you know when it's time to walk away from the dream?
Ooh. Sometimes you make money. Are you in the dream for freedom? Are you in the dream for celebrity, like, and likes and fans on social media? First starts there. And then that's a personal question for everybody, because like I said, it depends on what you're deriving from your dream. But if you feel that after some amount of time and you've given it the good old college try that it's not working out and you're not getting what you deserve, you should feel free to walk away and either pursue another dream or say, this dream's not for me, or I'm going to take a break from this dream and come back to it. Again, It boils down to nothing is irreversible in most instances. It's just not.
I love that. And what investment, Chris-Tia, do you think was the best investment that you made in yourself or your business?
Well, I think the best investment I've made in the business is hiring a good team. But in terms of myself and getting to the next level, I've recently hired a business coach to help me just identify and think more strategically, to spend 90 minutes a month
focused on my business, or 6 hours a month where I do nothing but think, and figuring out how do I carve that time out for myself? Because sometimes, again, back-to-back appointments, back-to-back meetings, back-to-back phone calls. So many times you're just doing, you're never thinking. And the thinking is important, whether you run a company or you're a stay-at-home mom. We all need time to process what is actually going on with our lives. And I have found that recently I didn't have time for that. I'm like, no, this is a problem. I need not to check my cell phone at the beginning of the morning. When I'm riding in the Uber, I need to not be on myself. I just need to just be. And one other thing I'll say about that, I'm reading this book called The Essentialism, The Art of Doing Less. Sometimes high achievers feel like, oh, I constantly have to be doing something because I'm working towards my goals. Sometimes there is a greater return on investment to not doing something versus doing something. So for instance, there may be a greater return on investment to me sitting down or journal or write down my goals versus taking a phone call for an hour. So you have to really, like I said, whether you're running a company or, you are working for a corporation, you need time to think.
Definitely. You don't want to be busy just for the sake of being busy. It's like, what's the
exactly.
point?
Yeah.
So last thing, we couldn't end this podcast or get into our lightning round without asking you, what's your number one legal tip that you would give to any newbie entrepreneur?
Always, whenever you have a contract, it doesn't matter if a lawyer reads it or not, just focus on the termination clause. Always have a 30-day termination clause.
And why is that important?
Because basically, again, if we talk about nothing's irreversible, if you sign a bad contract with a 30-day termination clause, you can be like, I'm out. Deuces.
All right, guys listening in, make sure every contract you have has that. So let's go into our lightning round now, Chris-Tia. I'm going to give you a prompt, and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind. And remember, this is going to be going with our whole dreams and drive metaphor, okay?
Okay.
The first word is park.
Ivy.
Reverse.
Reverse. Like
Neutral.
Neutral, it makes me think of makeup.
Okay, and then drive.
Oh my God. Drive, just don't text and drive.
I'm not laughing at you, but this is the first one that I've had. I say this every time. Let me stop lying to myself. I tell everyone this was the first time I've heard these answers, which probably should be true, right? Because everyone thinks differently. Okay, Chris-Tia, so if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success. So tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before hitting the road.
Okay, I think the first thing is to practice listening skills, because it's not necessarily what people tell you, it's what they don't tell you. How many times people lead me to my next lead, give me my next business idea, tell me about the competition, if I just shut my fat mouth. Just shut your fat mouth. So that's number one. Be a good listener. I think the second thing is what I stressed earlier. Carve out time for yourself just to think about your dream, whether it's at, $1 or $1 million. You need that time to be the best boss or CEO that you can. And you can only get, further or whatever. You have to see and make your dream plain, and you have to carve out time for that. So to focus on your dream. So carve out time specifically where you do nothing but basically dream, if you will, and focus on your dream. So that's number 2. And then number 3, be kind to yourself, I guess. That would be my third one. And what I mean by that is you got to put your health first. You got to, make sure you're going to the doctor. And so I tell people, especially with my breast cancer diagnosis, it's like sometimes we get so caught up with the day-to-day and thinking everything is going well. But even sometimes when we are taking care of ourselves, if our relationships are not in good order, those can impact us as well. So it doesn't matter if you go to Soul Cycle every day. If you're angry with everyone, it's all the same. It's the same as not going to the doctor. So take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself and others.
Well, that's a great way to end. I feel like kindness will change the world, especially this world that we are living in now, and we don't know how these next 4 years are going to go. So I do encourage everyone listening in, practice that kindness, because we are going to need it. We're going to
need a lot of it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Chris-Tia. Can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you online, or where they can find your company as well?
So our products can be found in stores. I already mentioned that, mainly at Target and CVS. But where you can find us online is I'm TGIN CEO on Instagram, Facebook, and Instagram. And our website is www.tginatural.com.
All right. Thanks, Chris-Tia.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 70 with Chris-Tia. I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing her dream driving story as well as her keys to success. And if you haven't already, make sure that you enter our TGIN giveaway of the week. We're giving one lucky dream driver the chance to win the entire TGIN Moist collection. So you'll get the shampoo, conditioner, honey hair mask, and the buttercream daily moisturizer. I love this collection, and I'm really happy that Chris-Tia wants to give one of these away to you guys listening in. So to enter, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/win. That's dreamsanddrive.com/win to enter. The giveaway is going to run for 10 days following this episode's release. So hopefully you guys get to enter that. If you want today's show notes, just go to dreamsanddrive.com and click on episode 70. Make sure that you're following us on social at Dreams and Drive and using the hashtag Dreams and Drive when talking about this episode or sharing it with a friend. I'm so appreciative of you guys. So make sure that you're also subscribed to us wherever you're listening, whether it be iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn. Hit that subscribe button so that you get updates every week when we have a new episode. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we're going to chat again in episode 71. You don't want to miss that one. Talk to you soon.